The great war room on Krex Prime buzzed with excitement. Huge screens showed star maps covering half the galaxy. Red dots marked enemy planets. Blue dots showed the Galactic Dominion's massive fleet. In the center of it all sat Emperor Vorthok. On his crystal throne, his 6 arms moving as he studied battle plans. "Today we finish this war," the Emperor said. His voice echoed through the metal chamber. "The Outer Rim Coalition has fought us for 10 years, but now we have them cornered." Admiral Korath stepped forward. His purple skin gleamed under the bright lights. "My lord, our scouts report the rebels are hiding behind the human border. Should we go around them?" "Around?" Emperor Vorthok laughed. "Why go around when we can go straight through? Humans are nothing. They barely learned to fly between stars 50 years ago." The other commanders nodded and smiled. Everyone knew humans were weak. They had small ships. They had no real weapons. They lived on just a few planets. Most aliens saw them as pets or curiosities. But then General Dexfer stood up. The old soldier's 4 eyes looked tired. Scars covered his gray skin from 100 battles. He had served the Empire for 200 years. He had never lost a war. "Your Majesty," Vexfer said slowly, "I must speak." The room went quiet. When Nexfer talked, people listened. He was the Empire's greatest general. He had conquered more worlds than anyone else alive. "I request that we declare humans a protected neutral species," Vexfer said. "We must not attack their planets or fly through their space." The silence broke. Every commander started talking at once. Some laughed. Others looked confused. Admiral Korath's eyes went wide. "General, are you sick?" Admiral Korath asked. "Humans can't even fight. Their biggest warship is smaller than our transport ships." "I have studied them," Dexfer replied. His voice stayed calm. "For 3 years, I watched them from the Kepler border station. I learned their ways, saw how they think." Emperor Vorthok leaned forward on his throne. "And what did you see that scares the great General Vexfer?" Vexfer walked to the center of the room. He moved slowly, like an old man carrying a heavy weight. "I saw something I have never seen in any other species, my lord. Humans do not fight like we do. They do not fight like anyone does." "How do they fight?" asked Commander Zelok from the back. "They don't," Dexfer said, "until they do, and then ... double quotes. Then they become something else." Admiral Korath snorted. "Something else. What does that mean?" Dexfer activated a small holoprojector. Images filled the air above them. Pictures showed human colonies. The humans looked small and weak. They smiled a lot. They helped each other. They seemed peaceful. "Look at these pictures," Dexfer said. "What do you see?" "Weak creatures," said Commander Zelok. "Soft beings who cannot fight," added Admiral Korath. "I thought the same thing," Dexfor admitted. "For 2 years, I thought humans were harmless." But then something happened. The images changed.
How they
Showed a mining accident on a human colony. A tunnel had collapsed. Dozens of humans were trapped inside. Rescue looked impossible. "Watch what they do," Dexfer said quietly. The images moved like a video. The humans outside did not panic. They did not run away. Instead, they organized. In minutes, they had teams working. Some dug with their hands. Others brought tools. Children carried water. Old people directed the work. But that was not the strange part. They worked for 6 days, Vexfer explained, without rest, without stopping. They took turns sleeping for 1 hour at a time. They shared their food. They gave their tools to whoever needed them most. The video showed the rescue. The trapped humans came out alive. The rescuers cheered and cried. They hugged each other. "So they help each other," Admiral Korath said with a shrug. "Many species do that." "No," Dexfer said. "You don't understand. I ran the numbers. By our calculations, the rescue was impossible. The tunnel was too deep. The rock was too hard. They had the wrong equipment. Should have taken weeks with proper machines." Emperor Vorthok frowned. "But they did it in 6 days?" "Yes, my lord. And when I studied how, I found something that made my blood cold." The expert changed the images again. They did not just dig randomly. In 6 days, they created new tools. They invented new ways to move rocks. They figured out engineering problems that should have taken our best scientists months to solve. The room grew quiet again. They adapted. The HFY continued. Every few hours, they found a better way. When their shovels broke, they made better shovels. When the rocks were too heavy, they built machines from spare parts. When one plan failed, they tried 5 new plans. That's impossible, whispered Commander Zelek. I thought so too, so I watched more human colonies. Every time they faced a problem, the same thing happened. They changed, they improved, they became whatever they needed to become. Dexfer turned off the projector. He looked directly at Emperor Vorthok. My lord, in my 200 years of service, I have conquered 47 different species. I know how aliens fight. Zephyrians fight with honor and strength. Mechanical collectives fight with logic and numbers. Psionic communes fight with mind powers and tricks. And humans. The Emperor asked, Humans fight by becoming better at fighting. Then you are, Dexter said simply. They study you. They learn from you. Then they beat you with your own methods, but improved. Admiral Korth stood up angrily. This is ridiculous. They have no army, no big guns, no battle experience. That is exactly what makes them dangerous, Dexter replied. Every species we have conquered had armies, had weapons, had experience, and we knew how to beat them because we understood how they fought. Humans are different. Humans don't have one way of fighting. They have every way of fighting. Whatever works best against their enemy, that's what they become. Emperor Vorthok was quiet for a long moment. Then he laughed. General Dexfer, you have served me well for many years. But I think these humans have confused you. They are just another weak species. My lord, please. Enough. The Emperor's voice boomed. Admiral Korth, take your 7th Fleet to human space. It's secure. Their homeworld is our supply base. We need their planets for our final push against the rebels. Admiral Korth smiled. It will be easy, my lord. We'll have their surrender in 3 days. General Dexter closed his 4 eyes. My lord, if you do this, you will regret it. Empire will regret it. Are you threatening me, General? No, my lord. I am trying to save you. Dexter pulled out his command badge. The metal star had been his symbol of rank for decades. He placed it on the Emperor's throne. I resign from your service. I will not be part of what comes next. You're running away from humans? Admiral Korth laughed. Dexter looked at the younger officer with pity. No, Admiral. I am running away from what humans will turn us into. The old general walked toward the door. As he reached it, he turned back one last time. Admiral Korth, when you meet them, remember this. Humans have a saying. We are peaceful people who want to be left alone. But if you won't leave us alone, we will become very good at not leaving you alone either. What does that mean? Korth asked. You will find out, Dexter said sadly. Then he left the war room forever. Emperor Vorthok watched his best general go. For just a moment, doubt crept into his mind. But then he looked at his mighty fleet on the screens. Thousands of ships, millions of soldiers, the greatest military force in the galaxy. Prepare the 7th Fleet, he ordered. We attack the humans in 1 week. As the commanders rushed to follow orders, none of them noticed the small recording. The device that General Dexter had left behind would capture everything that happened next. Someday when the Empire fell, beings would want to know why. The recording would show that the greatest general in galactic history had tried to warn them, but nobody had listened. 3 weeks later, Admiral Korth's 7th Fleet arrived at the edge of human space. 200 warships floated in perfect formation. Each ship was bigger than anything humans had ever built. The fleet could destroy entire planets. Admiral Korth stood on his command bridge, looking at the small human colony world called New Sol. The planet looked peaceful. Green forests covered the land. Small cities dotted the continents. Tiny human ships moved between the planet and its moons like insects. Send them our message, Korth ordered. The communication officer pressed a button. A hologram of Admiral Korth appeared on every human screen on the planet. His purple skin looked scary in the blue light. His voice was cold and hard. Humans of New Sol, I am Admiral Korath of the Galactic Dominion. Your species will now serve the Empire. You have two choices. Surrender now and live as our servants. Refuse and die. You have 1 hour to decide on New Sol. Governor Deho received the message in his office. He was a calm man with gray hair and kind eyes. Next to him stood Mina, the planet's defense coordinator. She was younger, with short black hair and smart eyes that missed nothing. Well, Deho said quietly, we knew this day might come. Mina nodded. The emergency protocols? Yes. Send the signal to all human colonies. Code red. Full activation. Mina pressed a series of buttons on her desk. A simple message went out. On quantum channels to every human world, the storm has come. Time to show them who we really are. Meanwhile, Giwu, a young diplomat, was already on a video call with Earth. She spoke to Ambassador Hyansik, an older man who had spent his life preparing for this moment. Ambassador Giwu said, they want us to surrender. They say we have 1 hour. Hyansik smiled sadly. Tell them we appreciate their offer, but we must decline. Humans do not make good servants, sir. They have 200 warships. We have maybe 20 small patrol boats. Numbers are not everything, Giwu. Remember what our ancestors taught us? The mouse does not fight the cat by being bigger. The mouse fights the cat by being smarter. As the hour passed, something strange began to happen. Admiral Korath watched. His sensors, as the human colony went dark, one by one, all the lights on New Sol turned off. All radio signals stopped. Even the small ships disappeared from his screens. What are they doing? Korath asked his sensor officer. Unknown, sir. They've gone completely silent. Maybe they're hiding. Korath laughed. Hiding won't help them. Fire a warning shot at that mountain range. Show them what our weapons can do. 3 Dominion ships fired their plasma cannons. The mountain exploded in a ball of fire and smoke. The blast could be seen from space. Any normal species would panic and surrender immediately. But the humans did something unexpected. Instead of panicking, they got organized. Soldash been a scientist. Studying alien life on New Sol was in her laboratory when the mountain exploded. She was not scared. She was fascinated. She had been studying Dominion psychology for 3 years, ever since they first appeared in the galaxy. Interesting, she said to her assistant. They use plasma cannons, temperature about 3,000 degrees, effective range of 2 kilometers. Energy output suggests their ships carry about 40 shots each. How can you be so calm? Her assistant asked. Because we've been preparing for this since we left Earth, Salbin replied. Did you think we spent 50 years exploring space just to look at pretty stars? Across human space, similar conversations were happening. Every human colony had received the same signal. Every human ship, station, and outpost began to change. Admiral Korath saw the first sign something was wrong when ships began appearing at the edge of the system. But these were not military vessels. They were mining ships, cargo haulers, passenger liners, and research vessels. Sir, his sensor officer reported, we're detecting 47 human ships approaching, but they're all civilian craft. Civilians. Korath frowned. Are they evacuating? No, sir. They're heading toward us. Korath studied the approaching ships. It looked harmless. Old mining equipment, slow cargo vessels.
Oh, nothing.
That could threaten a Dominion warship. Then his sensors started showing readings that made no sense. Sir, those mining ships are carrying weapons. Big weapons. That's impossible. Civilians don't have military equipment. Sir, I'm reading plasma cannons on that cargo ship, and that passenger liner has missile tubes. Admiral Korath felt a cold. Fear in his stomach. How do civilians have military weapons? His intelligence officer, a young alien named Vex, had been studying human transmissions for weeks. Sir, I've been analyzing their communications. I think they don't have civilians. What do you mean? Every human ship is built the same way. They look different on the outside, but inside they're all the same. Every mining ship can be converted to a warship in a few hours. Every cargo ship can carry troops. Every passenger? Liner can launch fighters. Korith stared at the screens. You're saying their entire merchant fleet is actually a hidden navy? Yes, sir. And sir, there's something else. So those weapons they're carrying? They're not human designs? Then whose are they? Vex looked scared. Ours, sir. They're improved versions of our own weapons. Somehow, they made our plasma cannons better. As if to prove his point, one of the human mining ships fired a plasma bolt at a small asteroid. The asteroid didn't just explode, it vaporized completely. The blast was 3 times more powerful than anything in the Dominion fleet. Possible? Korith whispered. Back on New Sol, Governor Deho was in his command center, deep underground. The room was full of humans working at computers and talking on radios. Maps covered the walls showing every Dominion ship position, Report Deho said. Mina looked at her screens. All colonies are active. The fleet is in position. Earth Defense Command is online. Casualties from their warning shot? None. The mountain was empty. We evacuated it 3 days ago when our sensors detected their approach. Deho nodded. And our guests. Mina smiled. 12 Dominion prisoners so far, all being treated well. Prisoners. How do we have prisoners already? Date. Boarding actions? Sir, our mining ships got close enough to use magnetic grapples. Small teams went aboard their scout ships. And the Dominion crews? Confused, sir? Very confused. In the Dominion fleet, Admiral Korith was indeed confused. 3 of his scout ships had been captured, but not destroyed. The humans had somehow gotten aboard, disabled the crews without, killing them and taken the ships intact. Even more confusing were the reports from his captured officers. They were being held in clean, comfortable rooms. Humans gave them food, medical care, and entertainment. They were treated like honored guests, not prisoners of war. Why aren't they torturing our people? Korith asked Vex. I don't know, sir, but sir. I intercepted a human transmission. They're asking our prisoners questions. What kind of questions? About our families, our homes, what we like to eat, what music we enjoy. Personal questions. Korith felt more confused. They're getting 2. Know them? Yes, sir. And sir? Our people are answering. They seem to... ... like the humans. This was impossible. The Dominion ruled through fear and strength. Their soldiers were loyal because they were afraid of punishment. But these humans were making friends with their enemies. Sir? The sensor officer called out. The human ships are moving. Korith looked at the screens. The human ships were not attacking. Instead, they were spreading out, surrounding his fleet at a safe distance. They moved in patterns that made no military sense. What are they doing? They single quotes dancing. The human ships were indeed moving like dancers. They spun and weaved around each other in beautiful patterns. It was almost like art. But Admiral Korith was a smart commander. He realized this was not art. It was something much more dangerous. They're mapping us, he said quietly, sir. Every movement shows them something new about our ships, how fast we turn, how quickly we can. Target them. Our weapons range? Our blind spots? They're learning everything about us? Vex checked his computers. Sir, you're right. They're scanning us with every type of sensor possible. They know more about our ships than we do. Admiral Korith sat down, heavily in his command chair. For the first time in his career, he was facing an enemy he didn't understand. Humans fought unlike any species he had ever seen. They didn't try to destroy his fleet. Instead, they studied it. They didn't kill his prisoners. Instead, they befriended them. They didn't have a military. Instead, they had turned their entire civilization into one giant defense system. Sir, his communication officer said, we're receiving a transmission from the humans. Put it on screen. A human face appeared. He looked calm and friendly, like he was having a pleasant conversation with a neighbor. Admiral Korith, welcome to our space. We hope you will consider leaving peacefully. We have no desire to fight you. We'll surrender immediately or be destroyed. Korith shouted. Deho shook his head sadly. Admiral, we've been studying your species for 3 years. We know about your families, your culture, your fears. We don't want to hurt you, but if you force us to fight, you will not like what we become. The transmission ended. Admiral Korath stared at the empty screen. General. Vaxfer had been right. Humans were not like other species. An admiral. Korath was beginning to understand why that was terrifying. Admiral Korath expected a quick battle. 200 warships against a few dozen converted human civilian vessels. The fight should have lasted maybe an hour. Then he would accept the humans' surrender and move on to fight the real war. But humans did not fight the way he expected. When Korath ordered his fleet to attack, human ships scattered like leaves in the wind. They did not form battle lines. They did not try to protect each other. Instead, each ship went in a different direction. Follow them, Korath ordered. Don't let them escape. His fleet split up to chase the human ships. This was exactly what Korath wanted. The ships were faster and stronger than the human vessels. In a one-on-one fight, every Dominion ship would win easily. But the humans were not trying to win one-on-one fights, Captain. Taman commanded a converted asteroid mining ship called the Persistent. His ship was slow and ugly. It had been built to break rocks in space, not fight wars. But Taman was smart, and he understood something important about warfare that the Dominion had forgotten. The goal was not to have fair fights. The goal was to win. Admiral Korath's flagship is following us, his navigator reported. Perfect. Taman smiled. Set course for the Helix Nebula. Make sure they can keep up. Sir, if we go into the nebula, we won't be able to see anything either. Who says we need to see? Taman had been an asteroid miner for 20 years before this war started. He knew every rock, every piece of floating metal, every gas cloud. In this system, more importantly, he had spent those 20 years preparing for this exact moment. Admiral Korath's flagship followed the Persistent into the nebula. The space around them filled with colorful gas and floating rocks. It was beautiful, but it blocked sensors and made targeting impossible. Where did they go? Korath demanded. I can't see them, sir. Too much interference. Then we wait. They can't hide forever. But the humans were not hiding. Deep in the nebula, the Persistent met with 12 other human ships. They had been waiting here for 3 years, disguised as mining equipment. The lead ship was commanded by Young Ho, who used to mine asteroids, before he became a tactical coordinator. Welcome to our trap, Young Ho said over the radio. Around them, hidden in the gas clouds, were hundreds of hollow asteroids. Each one had been carefully prepared over many years. Inside each asteroid were weapons, sensors, and computers controlled by humans who knew this space better than their own homes. Korath's flagship is 2 kilometers away, reported one of the asteroid stations. He has 15 ships with him. Are they in position? Taman asked. Perfect position, Young Ho confirmed. They're sitting right in the middle of our field. Then let's show them what human miners can really do. The trap was simple, but deadly. The humans had spent years turning ordinary asteroids into weapons, not obvious weapons like missiles or guns. Instead, they had created something much more creative. Each hollow asteroid contained a small device that could change the asteroid's movement. With a simple computer command, any asteroid could be sent flying in any direction. The Dominion ships found themselves surrounded by hundreds of rocks that suddenly started moving, but the asteroids were not trying to hit the ships. That would be too simple, and humans were never simple. Instead, the moving asteroids created a maze. The Dominion ships could not move without hitting rocks. They could not fire their weapons without destroying the asteroids that might contain human crews. They were trapped in a prison made of floating stone. What is happening? Admiral Korath shouted. The asteroids, sir. They're moving on their own. Asteroids don't move on their own. These ones do, sir. But the real surprise came when the Dominion ships tried to fight back. They fired their plasma cannons at the nearest asteroid. The rock exploded, but instead of debris, small pods came flying out. The pods attached to Dominion ships like metal. Insects. Boarding pods. Someone screamed. We're being boarded. Inside Admiral Korath's flagship, alarms rang everywhere. Human boarding teams were cutting through the hole. But when the Dominion crew prepared to fight the invaders, something strange happened. The humans who came aboard were not soldiers. They were doctors, engineers, and teachers. They carried medical supplies instead of weapons. They moved carefully, like they were trying not to break anything. "Surrender, and you will not be harmed," said the lead human. Her name was Yoonji, and she had been a medic before the war started. "We are here to help you. Help us." The Dominion officer was confused. "You just attacked our ship." "We disabled your weapons so you couldn't hurt anyone," Yoonji explained. "Now we want to make sure you're not injured." This made no sense to the Dominion crew. Every war they had ever fought, boarding meant killing. When you captured an enemy ship, you destroyed the crew or made them slaves, did not offer them medical care. But that's exactly what the humans did. Eung and her team moved through the ship, checking on every Dominion officer. They bandaged cuts and bruises. They gave medicine to anyone who felt sick. They offered food and water to hungry crew members. "Why are you being nice to us?" asked a young Dominion soldier. "We came here to conquer you." Yoonji looked sad. "You're just following orders, because you have families at home who love you. Because when this war is over, we want you to remember that humans could have killed you, but chose not to." Similar scenes played out on 15 other Dominion ships. Human boarding teams captured each vessel, but instead of destroying them, they turned them into medical stations. Wounded Dominion officers found themselves being treated by the same humans they had come to fight. The psychological effect was devastating. Bioram was a human psychologist who had studied Dominion culture. For years, she understood exactly how the alien military worked. Dominion soldiers were taught that enemies were evil and must be destroyed. They were told that showing mercy was weakness. But here were humans showing mercy and proving they were stronger. Because of it, this is psychological warfare. Bioram explained to Governor Daeho over the radio. Every captured Dominion soldier is asking the same question. If humans are so evil, why are they treating us so well? "And what's the answer?" Daeho asked. "The answer is that everything the Dominion taught them is a lie. We're not evil. We're not weak. We're just different. And that difference is destroying their whole worldview." Word spread quickly through the Dominion fleet. The humans were not killing prisoners. They were not torturing anyone. Instead, they were providing better medical care than most Dominion soldiers had ever received. Captured officers were housed in clean, comfortable rooms.
Ow.
They were given entertainment, books, and even communication with their families. Human guards treated them with respect and politeness. "I don't understand," one captured Dominion captain said to his human guard. "Why are you not angry with us? We came to conquer your world." The human guard, a former teacher named Sujin, smiled sadly. "We are angry, but we're angry at the system that sent you here, not at you personally. You're just doing what you thought was right, but we would have enslaved your people. We know. That's why we had to stop you. But stopping you doesn't mean we have to hate you." This was a completely new concept for the Dominion soldiers. In their empire, enemies were enemies. Forever. There was no forgiveness, no understanding, only conquest or death. But humans offered a third option: change, back in the nebula. Admiral Korath was having the worst day of his military career. Half his ships were captured. The other half were trapped in an asteroid maze. His proud fleet was being defeated by mining equipment and civilian vessels. "Sir," his communication officer reported, "we're receiving another transmission from the humans." Governor Daeho's face appeared on screen again. Behind him stood other humans, scientists, doctors, teachers, and engineers. They looked like ordinary people, not soldiers. "Admiral Korath," Daeho said calmly, "your officers are safe and well cared for. We propose a temporary ceasefire so you can see for yourself." "This is a trick," Korath shouted. "No trick. We'll send you video feeds from all our detention facilities. You can speak directly with your captured officers." The screen split into multiple views. Korath could see his officers in clean rooms, eating good food, talking with human guards. They looked confused but healthy. One of his captains, a veteran, named Zork, appeared on screen. "Admiral, these humans, they're not what we expected, are they? Torturing you?" "No, sir. They're being kind to us. The human doctor fixed my old back injury. I haven't felt this good in years." Admiral Korath felt his world turning upside down. This is impossible. Sir, another captured officer appeared. They've been showing us videos of their homeworld, their families, their culture, Admiral. They're not monsters. No, they're just people trying to protect their homes. Governor Deho spoke again. Admiral, we know everything about your species. We've studied your history, your psychology, your military tactics. We know you've been taught that conquest is strength and mercy is weakness. It is. Then why are we winning? Deho asked simply. Admiral Korath had no answer. By every rule of warfare he understood, his superior fleet should have crushed the humans in minutes. Instead, he was losing to people who fought with mining equipment and treated their enemies like guests. We don't want to destroy your fleet, Deho continued. We want you to go home and tell your emperor what you learned here. Tell him that humans fight differently. Tell him that we prefer peace, but we're very good at war when we have to be. And if I refuse, then we'll continue this demonstration until you change your mind. But Admiral, think about your crew. Think about their families. How many good soldiers need to die to prove a point that's already been proven? Admiral Korath looked around his bridge. His officers were staring at him, waiting for orders. What orders could he give? Surrender? Fight a battle he was clearly losing? Run away? For the first time in his career, Admiral Korath realized he was facing an enemy that fought with their brains instead of their anger. And he was starting to understand why General Vexfer had been so scared. Humans were not just different, they were better. And that was the most terrifying thing he had ever discovered. News of Admiral Korath's defeat reached Emperor Vorthok 3 days later. The report came through quantum communication, delivered by a shaken junior officer who had escaped the human trap. Impossible, the Emperor said, crushing the report in his crystal fist. One human colony cannot defeat 200 warships. My lord, the young officer stammered. They didn't fight like any enemy we've seen. They used our own captured ships against us. They turned asteroids into weapons. They treated our prisoners like honored guests until our own soldiers began questioning their orders. Emperor Vorthok stood up from his throne, his 6 arms waving in anger. Admiral Korath was weak. He let civilians confuse him. Sir, with respect, these were not ordinary civilians. They had been preparing for war their entire lives, just disguised as miners and traders. The Emperor turned to his remaining commanders. I want 3 fleets sent to human space immediately. The 2nd, 4th, and 9th fleets. Total strength, 600 ships. Destroy every human world you find. General Bekstar, an old soldier who had served almost as long as Vexfor, stepped forward nervously. My lord, perhaps we should listen to General Vexfor's warning. These humans seem unusually dangerous. General Vexfor is a coward, Emperor Vorthok roared. I will not be defeated by a species that learned to fly between stars 50 years ago, but across the galaxy. Humans had been very busy during those 50 years. The truth was more complex than any Dominion intelligence report had revealed. Humans had not just learned to travel between stars, they had been preparing for the day when someone would try to stop them. Every colony ship that left, Earth carried more than just settlers. It carried engineers, scientists, military planners, and detailed plans for defending human space. Every trade mission had been a scouting expedition. Every diplomatic contact had been an intelligence-gathering operation. For 50 years, humans had been building not just an interstellar civilization, but an interstellar fortress. When the 3 Dominion fleets arrived at the edge of human space, they found something that made no sense. Instead of hiding or gathering their ships for one big battle, the humans had spread out across 17 star systems. Insu was the human strategic coordinator for the entire defense network. From his command center on Earth, he could see everything happening in human space. The screen showed hundreds of human ships moving in patterns that looked random, but were actually carefully planned. They've brought 600 ships, reported his assistant, a young woman named Heywan. Good, Insu replied calmly. The more ships they send, the more we can teach them. Teach them what? That size doesn't matter. Organization does. Insu activated what humans called the persistence protocol. It was named after Captain Taman's ship, which had proven that one small vessel with a good plan could defeat much larger forces. The protocol was simple. Never fight the enemy where they are strong. Always fight them where they are weak. The Dominion fleets expected to fight human ships. Instead, they found their supply lines under attack. Captain Hay-1 commanded a converted passenger liner that had been secretly modified for warfare. Her ship looked harmless from the outside, but inside it carried the most advanced electronic warfare systems humans had ever built. "Target the supply convoy heading for the Second Fleet," she ordered. "Ma'am, that convoy has 50 escort ships. We're not attacking the escort ships," Hay-1 smiled. "We're attacking their computers." Human hackers, led by a brilliant programmer named Sujin, had spent 3 years studying captured Dominion technology. They understood the aliens' computer systems better than the aliens did. Hay-1's ship got within communication range of the Dominion convoy and sent what appeared to be a routine identification signal. Hidden in that signal was a computer virus designed by Sujin's team. The virus was beautiful in its simplicity. It did not destroy the Dominion computers. Instead, it made them more helpful. Every Dominion computer began broadcasting detailed information about troop movements, supply schedules, weapon capabilities, and strategic plans. The computers thought they were being helpful by sharing information with other Dominion units. They did not realize they were actually broadcasting everything to human intelligence networks. Within hours, humans knew everything about the Dominion fleet movements. They knew which ships needed fuel, which crews were tired, which commanders were nervous, which units had low morale. But the humans did something even more devastating than gathering intelligence. They began broadcasting. Was a human historian who specialized in military history. From his office on Mars, he began transmitting on all Dominion communication frequencies. His voice reached every ship in the enemy fleets. "Good morning, soldiers of the Galactic Dominion," Jahian said in perfect Dominion standard language. "Today I want to tell you about the Battle of Kepler Station, fought by your own forces 3 years ago." This confused the Dominion crews. Why was a human talking about their old battles? Jahian continued. "In that battle, Admiral Vexcol used a pincer movement to trap rebel forces in an asteroid field. The tactic worked because Admiral Vexcol understood 3 key principles of space warfare. First, control the high ground. Second, limit the enemy's escape routes. Third, force them to fight on your terms, not theirs." Across the Dominion fleets, officers began listening more carefully. This human understood their military doctrine better than some of their own commanders. "Now, let me explain how humans would counter that same tactic," Jahian said pleasantly. "First, we would not try to control the high ground. Instead, we would make the entire battlefield into low ground by collapsing the asteroids into a debris field. Second, we would not try to keep our escape routes open. Instead, we would turn the trap into our weapon by mining all the exit points. Third, we would not fight on your terms. We would change the terms entirely. The effect was terrifying. Every Dominion commander realized that humans had studied their tactics and developed counters to all of them. But Jahin was just getting started. "Let me tell you about the Battle of Spiral Arms 7, he continued. Admiral Korath used massed plasma bombardment to break enemy defensive positions. This worked against the Zephyrians because they tried to absorb the attack with shields. Humans would not make that mistake. Young Na-Young, a human xenopsychologist, joined the broadcast. "We've also studied your command structure," she said. "Dominion fleets operate on fear-based hierarchy. Orders flow from the top down, and lower officers are afraid to suggest changes or report problems. This creates predictable weaknesses," Jahan added. "When your top commander makes a mistake, the entire fleet follows that mistake. 8. When lower officers see problems, they don't report them quickly enough to fix things. Humans organize differently," Na-Young explained. "Our commanders expect to be questioned by their subordinates. We consider it a sign of strength when junior officers point out problems or suggest improvements." The psychological warfare was devastating. Every Dominion officer began to question their own command structure. If humans could predict their tactics so easily, what other weaknesses did they have? But the worst was yet to come. Kyungmin was a human engineer who worked at the main research facility on Luna. 3 weeks earlier, his team had finished analyzing captured Dominion weapons and ships. What they found changed everything. Attention. Dominion forces, Kyungmin broadcast. We want to thank you for the technology samples you left behind after your encounter with our mining fleet. In the Dominion command ships, alarm bells started ringing. Your plasma cannon design is very impressive, Kyungmin continued. The energy focusing system is elegant and efficient. However, we noticed several ways to improve it. On every human ship, new weapons began powering up. They looked similar. 2 Dominion plasma cannons, but the energy readings were impossible. Our version has 40% more range and 60% more power, Kyungmin explained. We also fixed the overheating problem and reduced the recharge time by half. Human ship demonstrated the new weapon by firing at a distant asteroid. The rock didn't just explode, turned into glowing gas that spread across several kilometers of space. We've also improved your shield technology, Kyungmin added cheerfully, and your engines, and your life support systems, your communications equipment. The terrible truth became clear to every Dominion commander. Humans didn't just study enemy tactics. They studied enemy technology and made it better. In 3 weeks, humans had taken Dominion equipment and improved it beyond what the aliens had achieved in centuries of development. How is this possible? Whispered Admiral Zexmar, commander of the Second Fleet. His science officer, a brilliant alien, named Korth, had been studying the human broadcasts. Sir, I think I understand. They don't improve things slowly like we do. They improve things in jumps. Jumps. When we develop technology, we make small changes over many years. When humans develop technology, they throw out everything that doesn't work and rebuild from scratch. They're not afraid to start over if they find a better way, but that should take decades. Not if your entire species is working together, sir. I've been analyzing their broadcasts. Every human colony, every human ship, every human scientist is sharing information instantly. When one human discovers something, all humans know it within hours. Admiral Zexmar felt cold fear creeping into his mind. You're saying their entire species is one giant research project? Yes, sir, and they've been researching us. As if to prove the point, the human broadcasts continued. Now they were explaining Dominion psychology, sociology, economics, and military history. They knew everything about the Empire that had conquered half the galaxy, and they were sharing that knowledge with everyone. The broadcasts were not just reaching Dominion ships, they were reaching every species in the galaxy. Conquered peoples who had never understood how the Dominion controlled them were learning the secrets of imperial power. Rebellion began to spread. Like wildfire across the Empire, Emperor Vorthok, receiving reports from across his domain, realized with growing horror that he was not just losing a war with humans, he was losing his entire empire, and it was all because he had ignored one old general's warning about a species that seemed too peaceful to be dangerous. General Dexiver had been right about everything, but now it was too late to listen. 6 months after the first human contact, the Galactic Dominion was falling apart. It was not a military defeat that destroyed the Empire. The human fleets were small compared to Dominion forces. A straight fight the aliens might have won through sheer numbers, but humans never fought straight fights instead. They fought with truth. Every day, human broadcasts reached more star systems. Every day, more species learned the secrets that had kept them enslaved for centuries. The Dominion had ruled through fear and ignorance. Humans destroyed both with education and kindness. On the fortress world of Krex Prime, Emperor Vorthok sat, alone in his crumbling throne room. Reports poured in from across his empire. The Zephyrians had rebelled, using human-provided intelligence about Dominion weak points. The mechanical collectives had shut down all trade with Imperial worlds. Even his own species was questioning his leadership. "My lord," his aide whispered nervously, "the human ambassador requests a meeting." "Human ambassador?" Warthok laughed bitterly. "They want to negotiate now that they've destroyed everything I built. Sir, he says he comes with terms for peace." Emperor! Vorthok had lost 600 ships, 40 star systems, and the loyalty of half his empire. He had no choice left but to listen. Send him in. The human who entered was not what Vorthok expected. Chung-Ho was an older man with kind eyes and gray hair. He wore simple clothes, not a military uniform. He looked like a teacher, not a conqueror. Your Majesty, Chung-Ho said, bowing politely, thank you for agreeing to meet with me. What do you want? Vorthok snarled. You've already taken everything. We haven't taken anything, Chung-Ho replied calmly. We've simply shown your subjects the truth. What they do with that truth is their choice. You destroyed my empire. Sat down without being invited, like he was visiting a friend instead of negotiating with an enemy. Your Majesty, may I ask you a question? Vorthok was too tired to argue. Ask, why did you want to conquer us? The question was so simple it confused the emperor. Because, because that is what empires do. We expand, we grow stronger. Why did you need to grow stronger? To protect ourselves from enemies. What enemies? Vorthok opened his mouth to answer, then stopped. In truth, the Dominion had no real enemies anymore. They had conquered or destroyed all serious threats decades ago, and they continued conquering because it was what they had always done. See, you understand? Chung-Ho said gently. Your empire conquered because conquest was its nature. But conquest without purpose becomes cruelty. And cruelty always creates the very enemies it claims to fight. So what do you propose? Vorthok asked wearily. Chung-Ho pulled out a simple datapad. Unconditional surrender of all Dominion military forces. Immediate release of all political prisoners. Free elections on all formerly conquered worlds. And what do I get? Life, Chung-Ho said simply. A peaceful retirement on your homeworld. Medical care for your people. Food aid for worlds damaged by the war. And most importantly, a chance to be remembered as the emperor who chose peace over pride. Vorthok stared at the human. You're not going to execute me? Why would we? You were doing what you thought was right. We don't punish people for being wrong. We help them learn to be right. This was perhaps the most alien thing any human had. Said, every species in the galaxy understood revenge. Winners destroyed losers, conquerors enslaved the conquered. That was the natural order. But humans offered forgiveness instead of revenge. Hope instead of fear. And if I refuse? Chung-Ho looked sad. Then we continue broadcasting truth until your remaining subjects choose to leave you. But your Majesty, how many more good soldiers need to die for a war that's already over? Emperor Vorthok thought about his remaining forces. Thousands of ships still flew the Dominion banner. Millions of soldiers still followed his orders. He could continue the fight, but what was the point? Every day, more worlds declared independence. Every week, more species learned to defend themselves, using human-provided knowledge. The empire was dying, not from external conquest, but from internal awakening. I have one condition, Vorthok said finally. What is it? I want to speak with General Dexfer. 2 hours later, a transport ship arrived, carrying the old general. Dexfer had aged in the months since his resignation. His 4 eyes looked tired, but his bearing was still proud. My lord, Dexfer said, entering the throne room. You tried? To warn me, Vorthok said quietly. Yes. You knew this would happen. I knew humans were dangerous. I didn't know they would be so... merciful. Chung-Ho stepped forward. General Dexfer, we've studied your military record. You were an honorable soldier who served your people faithfully. We bear you no hatred. Dexfer looked at the human with curiosity. What will happen to us now? Whatever you choose, Chung-Ho. Replied, your people are free to rebuild your civilization any way you want. We'll provide aid if you ask for it. We'll leave you alone if you prefer. The choice is yours. And the other species we conquered, also free to choose. Some want independence. Others want to join a new galactic council, where all species are equal partners. A few have asked humans to help them rebuild. Dexfer turned to his emperor. My lord, I spent 200 years serving an empire built on fear. Perhaps it's time to try building something based on hope. Emperor Vorthok signed the surrender documents that afternoon. Within days, human ships appeared throughout former Dominion space. But these were not warships. They were hospital ships, supply vessels, and engineering craft. Instead of occupying conquered worlds, humans began the largest humanitarian aid effort in galactic history. Wu Jin was a human medical coordinator who had studied alien biology for years. She led teams of doctors and nurses to worlds devastated by the war. Her first stop was Admiral Korif's homeworld, where military families worried about their sons and daughters who had been captured by humans. "Where are our people?" demanded a Dominion mother, whose son had been taken prisoner 6 months earlier. Safe, Wu Jin replied, activating a hologram communicator. "Would you like to speak with him?" The mother's son appeared in the hologram, healthy and smiling. Behind him was a human medical facility where former Dominion prisoners worked alongside human doctors, learning new healing techniques. "Mother," the young soldier called out, "these humans taught me to heal people instead of hurt them. I'm learning to be a doctor." Similar scenes played out across the former empire. Prisoners were not just returned home, they were returned as teachers, bringing knowledge and skills learned from human civilization so young. A human education specialist worked with former Dominion worlds to establish new schools, instead of teaching conquest and obedience. These schools taught cooperation and critical thinking. Minho was a human philosopher who traveled to alien worlds, not to convert them to human beliefs, but to help them rediscover their own forgotten wisdom. Every species had philosophers and teachers before the Dominion conquered them. Minho explained to a gathering of young Zephyrians, "Your people once believed in honor, art, and peaceful growth. Those beliefs are still inside you, waiting to be remembered." The transformation was remarkable. Worlds that had been military outposts became centers of learning. Species that had forgotten their own cultures began celebrating their heritage again. The galaxy started to heal from centuries of imperial oppression, but the most remarkable change happened on Earth itself. Junho was a human ambassador who worked with the new Galactic Cooperation Council. Representatives from dozens of species came to Earth, not as subjects seeking orders, but as partners seeking advice. "How do we prevent another empire from rising?" asked a Zephyrian delegate. "By making sure everyone has enough," Junho replied. "Empires rise when people are afraid and desperate. When everyone has food, shelter, education, and hope, nobody wants to conquer their neighbors." The Council's first act was to establish trade networks that benefited all species equally. Their second act was to create a mutual defense agreement, not to conquer others, but to protect each other from would-be conquerors. 1 year after the war ended, General Thexfer visited Earth. He was welcomed as an honored guest, not a former. Enemy Seojin, a human historian, gave him a tour of human cities. "I don't understand," Thexfer said as they walked through a peaceful park, where human children played with young aliens from a dozen different species. "You could rule the galaxy now. Your military proved itself superior. Your technology is more advanced. Your people are more organized. Why don't you create your own empire?" Seokjin smiled sadly, "Because we remember what empires cost."
We've
"Studied your history, General. The Dominion wasn't always evil. It started as a defensive alliance, trying to protect smaller species from raiders and pirates. That's true. But power corrupts. Good intentions become selfish ambitions. Protective becomes possessive. Soon you're conquering people for their own good and telling yourself you're still the heroes. So how do you avoid that trap? By refusing the power in the first place. By helping others become strong instead of making them dependent on us. By teaching instead of ruling. Dexfer nodded slowly. You fight wars to end wars instead of fighting wars to win wars. Exactly. That evening, Dexfer made his final military log entry. Today I learned the difference between strength and power. Strength is the ability to protect what you love. Power is the ability to take what you want. The Dominion chose power and lost everything. Humans chose strength and gained everything. The greatest tragedy of this war was not that the Empire fell. The tragedy was that it took so long for us to learn what humans knew from the beginning. The strongest species is not the one that conquers others, but the one that lifts others up. General Dexfer, final log entry. The war is over. The peace has begun. And perhaps for the first time in galactic history, the good guys actually won. As Dexver closed his log, he looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, on thousands of worlds, former enemies were working together to build something better than any empire. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson about the price of ignoring wisdom, but it had also learned something more important. It's never too late to choose hope over fear. And sometimes, just sometimes, the species that seems too peaceful to be dangerous is exactly the species the galaxy needs.